Hello, everybody. This is David Thomas with Southern Patriot Network. Today I have Mr. Paul Engel with me. Paul, it's good to have you back as always. We've got some stuff to talk about that would interest you and your family. Paul, how's everything going? You ready for Christmas?
I'm as ready as I'm going to be for Christmas. It's different. My daughter's an adult. There are no little kids running around. I don't have family in the area, but we will celebrate and have a grand old time. Hey, I'm preaching, so
All right,
nothing like preaching on Christmas Day.
there you go. All right. Well, I know there's a lot of talk in the news, not the mainstream media. They've got their own dog and pony show going on, but in a lot of the news media and a lot of concerned people out there that stay in touch with what's going on in the world, have a big concern about the central bank digital currency that's upon us,
Right.
and the possibility of that getting here sooner rather than later. I'm going to be diving into this a little bit more as we go along, but I want you to just give us your take on what's happening with the CBDC, where it stands today, what it might look like 6 months from now, or maybe a year from now.
Well, I've never been that good at prognostication, but I foresee that I've foreseen this coming. The question wasn't so much if, it's how. And the biggest thing I think people should understand about CBDCs is, imagine you're at a gas pump or you're at a grocery store and you got the little terminal and you stick your little card in with the chip and it says authorizing. Now today that means the system's checking with your bank or your credit card company to make sure that you can actually pay the bill. You've got money in the bank or you've got credit left on your credit card so that they will authorize a transaction. With a CBDC, whether it's using a card or a chip or an app, that authorization is being done by the federal government. It's
Yeah.
being done by the Federal Reserve, and it's going to be every transaction you have, from buying a house to buying a stick of gum, will be authorized and tracked by the federal government. And that basically, privacy ceases to exist. It's already pretty much gone, but what little privacy we have left completely disappears.
Well,
And what could be done with that is truly frightening.
let me ask you this. Isn't it going to go one step above our federal government, and some of the central banks over in Europe are actually going to be able to, the central bank of all central banks came out and said they wanted control. They basically, I've got a video that shows the guy basically saying, we want to know what happens to that $100 bill that's being spent. We can't do it now, but we will be able to do it. And has the United States signed some sort of treaty and basically signed away the American citizens' privacy away with the WHO, the World Health Organization? Didn't they sign a treaty of some sort?
Not to my knowledge, not really. And I say that for a couple of reasons. One is, a lot of this stuff isn't actually being done by treaty as much by business relationships. So
Right.
the was the International Bank of Reconciliation, which is how central banks talk to each other. They're not going to be worried about what you spend your dollar on. What they're going to be worried about is, wait a second, in the United States, they did not. They spent too much money on fossil fuels. They didn't spend enough on reparations. They didn't spend enough on green energy. Therefore, we're going to change interest rates.
Right. Yeah.
From an international standpoint, now there are a lot of countries that are implementing this. What it means is there will be fewer and fewer places you can go to have an anonymous financial transaction, because governments are going to regulate or just plain ban cryptocurrency, especially after what happened with FTX. So all the excuse the governments need to say, see, cryptocurrency is a scam and we need to regulate it. The thing with CBDCs is it takes observation not only to the next level, but to control. I just got a letter from my accountant warning me that if anything in my business was more than $600 and I used any cash app, I was going to get this new 1099 form,
Right.
to make sure that the federal government knew what that transaction was for. No probable cause, no reason to believe it was illegal. It's just a complete destruction of the Fourth Amendment. What CBDCs does is said, now instead of it being a $600 limit, they can look at anything they want, any transaction you want, and they can control it. Where was I just saw an article. There's I think it's a state senator somewhere that basically wants to cut people off because they're buying too much guns and ammo.
Right. Yeah.
CBDCs, it's done deal.
Right.
Operation Choke Point. We don't like this. Stop. The Obama administration encouraged banks and credit card companies to do this. The CBDCs, banks and credit card companies basically become, if they still exist, they're moot. They don't mean anything. The Federal Reserve will say, hey, no more of this. And of course, now with the was it the merchant bank code? Now if you have a business that sells firearms, that tag is in every credit card transaction that goes on for that business. Whether
Right.
you, again, go in and buy a belt, doesn't matter. And it's just more, let's collect information so that we can control people.
I think you could also see vaccine mandates enforced through this. If you don't have a vaccine mandate and you don't take our shot, then you can't make purchases until you do. I could see that happening. I think it could have happened very easily a year and a half ago when Joe Biden came out and pointed his finger and said, we're getting really frustrated with you. Pointing at, you remember when he did that?
Yep.
About vaccines.
Because you're not getting your shot.
Yeah. And the technology is already here, Paul. Look at this. See that little chip?
Oh, the technology has been around. The technology has been around for decades. It isn't the chip in the card that makes the difference. The chip enables other things, right? But you still had that magnetic stripe on the back that you had a number, you had an account. What changed was part of it was COVID. So you've got governments. When government started trampling our rights and we just rolled over to have our bellies rubbed, they realized, hey, we can cram all this stuff down people's throats. We just need an emergency that we can plausibly cover it. CBDCs are going to come out. It'll be an option. There'll be, you won't have to use it. You can use it instead of cash or instead of a credit card or a debit card. And then something will happen, whether it be something like an FTX or some recession or some other thing. And all of a sudden they're going to say, nope, cash is too dangerous. You must use a CBDC.
Well, you see a lot of organizations already getting away from cash, period. If you go to a Tennessee Titans ball game or to a Major League Baseball game, you can't pay for parking. You can't pay for concession stand purchases. Everything is done paperless. I mean, you can't use a currency. You have to use a card. So you're starting to see that come up everywhere, even high school ball games around here. Some of the places you go, you can't buy a paper ticket and pay cash. You have to do it online with an app. So it's already started. Today, something interesting happened. In our business, we do wire transfers sometimes to make purchases for some of the stuff that we import. Well, today we submitted a wire transfer and the bank called back. We're sorry, we have to ask you this. What is this for? Why are you sending money to this company? And basically, it's none of their business.
No, it's not.
It's not. And that's my stance. And we're buying merchandise to resell. They know we're in business. That's taking a step past what I'm comfortable with, and I'm not going to tolerate it.
You're a bank. Your job is to process money. If you're unwilling to process my money, we'll have to find another bank now, won't we?
Exactly. Now, that's a local owned bank, all right, which is supposed to be the easiest place to do business with. Well, I'm just over that one transaction. I'm considering taking my business to another bank because of that.
Offline, I want to know which bank, because I was just about to open up an account and I want to make sure it's not with this bank.
Well, I'll tell you offline, but it's pretty sad when it comes to that. I also got a new business credit card that we use when we travel. And there was a little note, and it said, this business card cannot be used for personal transactions. This is a business card. So those people that have used business card, I don't know how you would know if it's business or personal. If I go to Walmart and buy some tools or something, how do they know if it's? But they're wanting to know that they're getting more and more into our lives every day, Paul.
And again, what business is it of the bank what you use the card for? Now, again, if you're using a business account and to make personal purchases, there is bookkeeping that goes along with that, but that's none of the bank's business. But this whole idea of, because it's this whole nanny state, right? The government has to protect you from yourself. Therefore, the government has to control every aspect of your life because you might stub your toe. And I'm sorry, but I'm seeing the end of the republic. And it's not just the CBDCs, it's not just COVID, it's not just these regulations. It's the fact that they keep building and building and building, and the people at best sit back and go, gee, this is terrible. You remember the good old days when you can just whip out a bill and pay for your food, and now you got to go through the cart? All they do is whine.
Yeah. Well, I think that this is fast approaching, and I know that you don't want to make a prediction, but I heard a lady that's really, really on top of this today in an interview say it's not a matter of decades away. It's not a matter of a few years away. It's probably within the next couple of years, we're going to see this pushed out by several major banks worldwide. And it'll happen
wouldn't
fast.
Be the least surprised. Yeah. I I wouldn't bet against that. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. I believe it is coming. The question, my only thing I don't know is when, which is why I tell people, make sure you are making relationships to deal in the Patriot market.
Right. Yeah.
I don't call it a black market because it's not, we're not talking illegal. We're talking a Patriot market where, kind of like, when we started, when Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Google started suppressing, and we started seeing, Parler and Getter and all these pop up. We need the same thing here. We just need it to be Patriot focused.
Right.
And we could get some help from the states, but at this point they're so weak and spineless. I don't expect many states to stand up and do anything about it.
Well, I think our state, there's some leaders within our state, if I want to call leaders, but elected representatives, let's say it that way, our employees. Some of those are making a push in the state of Tennessee to get a state bank and a state depository. We've talked about this before, and they're getting some traction. They have found several state senators that are willing to carry that legislation forward, and that's a good sign. The only problem is there's going to be a lot of lies told to scare some of the smaller banks into thinking that a state bank is going to compete with them, it's there to help actually and help our state sovereignty. So we're going to have a lot of that happening over the next few months, I think, all through the South, I do believe. I know Texas has a state bank and depository, and I believe South Dakota also has one.
See, they have depositories there. To my knowledge, they haven't set them up as banks yet. So the idea is there's a place you can deposit your gold, or your silver, but they don't have the processes that we would expect from a bank. So that becomes, and for anybody who says they can't do that, by the way, Constitution says that states can use gold and silver as legal tender.
Right.
Constitution says that they can't use anything else, but they can use gold and silver as legal tender. They can't write their own notes, but they can use gold and silver as legal tender.
Well, I think that silver is grossly underpriced. Gold probably is too. I know that there's a lot of people going to precious metals right now as a hedge, but we might actually see this turn into a currency.
The two things when people talk to me about it is I tell them you need the physical asset. A lot of people are buying gold certificates.
Right.
That's a different type of hedge, right? But the other is to consider the denomination. I mean, think of it this way. Are you going to go to the store to buy a gallon of milk with a troy ounce of gold? Right? How do you make change for that?
Yeah, really.
You've got to, we have to prepare, because we got to think about these situations and how do we deal with them, preferably before we're thrown into the deep end of the pool.
Well, states definitely have to organize, and I know there's a real push right now in some areas to get with community. I know there's a few places in Tennessee that have tight knit communities. There's one in West Tennessee. They're basically self-contained. If something were to happen, they have wells for water. They have emergency power, a system set up. It's a small community of about 500 people. They have farmers. They have mechanics. They grow a lot of food. There's a lot of farming in the area. They have a meat processing plant. They've got a lot of stuff like that, and then that's what has to be organized.
Yep.
To carry out this Patriot market that you're talking about.
It was great. Earlier this year, I was speaking at an event up in northern Tennessee, and it was great because people were standing up saying, "Hey, I know how to do this, and I can teach you. You want to know how to garden? I'll come help you set up your garden. You want to learn how to can? I'll show you how to can. You want to learn how to knit?" And it was what it was. Like you said, it was just a Patriot community that said, "We foresee a time when we won't be able to do this and keep our conscience. What can we do to save ourselves, to protect ourselves, rather than waiting for someone else to do it for us?"
Well, Paul, my biggest concern, and I guess it goes back to what people are paying attention to. I suppose the mainstream media has done a good job of holding on to some audience, because it seems like anytime I mention this to somebody, I get a blank stare or a roll of the eyes, and I'm called a conspiracy theorist. This is not, CBDC is not a conspiracy theory. It's in fact taking place before our very eyes. And how can you get people to understand what's happening? That's the most frustrating thing.
Yeah, I mean, the Biden Treasury is already investigating CBDCs and how do we implement a digital dollar or something like that. It is happening. And, you know, there's one podcaster I listen to. He says, "You got to send me more conspiracies because all my conspiracy theories have come true." You know, but if you think about it, if we've already had examples of the government trying to control how you spend your money, how you live your life, they wanted a COVID passport. Why won't they do it? You know, we have the examples of, you know, was it power corrupts, and absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. It doesn't take a lot of theorizing to recognize, whether it's today, tomorrow, the next decade, if we allow the government that much control over how you spend your money, someday they will use it to control you. We saw it with, you know, everybody who's complaining about the Affordable Care Act and government control of medicine and death panels and all of that. And now what do we have today? We watched the federal government for 2 years control healthcare by determining what you could and could not use to treat a virus.
Right.
And now that same concept is being used to deny people life-saving treatment because they will not submit to medical experimentation.
Yeah.
It has come. All right. We were called conspiracy theorists when we said death panels are coming. Here they are today. We call them transplant boards.
Yeah.
And they're here today. Yeah. Those death panels, it was not a theory. It was a question of when.
Well, I encourage anybody that listens to this video to do research on this. There are plenty of resources out there. The Solari Group, that's Catherine Austin Fitz's website. Mm-hmm. Go there. She's talking about this constantly, and she's pleading with people to take some action to protect your family. And that's what everybody in every head of household, every man is charged by God to take care of his family. And to simply ignore this would be negligent, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Well, I'll tell you, putting my IT hat on, if you go searching for this, don't use Google.
Okay.
Because Google's going to take any answer that someone really needs and push it 5, 10, 15 pages down in the search.
Right.
There are other search engines, there are other search options, and there's more coming online.
Right.
So
Well, if you can go to Rumble, where this video is posted, and on our website at southernpatriotnetwork.com, I've got some resources there that you can link to. Mertech.com, which is a news source, it's a conglomerate. It's just basically a menu of all the news out there. They've got just a tremendous amount of resources where you can find out about this. But I encourage everybody to do your own research, do your own digging and due diligence on this, and decide for yourself. But it's coming, and we've got to be prepared. Paul, there's one other thing I want to talk to you about, and that's the January 6th committee came out with a recommendation to, they sent it over to the Justice Department to tell the Justice Department they need to prosecute Donald Trump for a few crimes that he committed on January 6th. Is this just theatrics, or is this real?
No, it's rare that I agree with Alan Dershowitz or who is the head of the DNC now, Hakeem Jeffries. January 6th, Hakeem Jeffries said January 6th committee was a historical moment for congressional. Absolutely right. It's when they took the Constitution, wiped their backsides with it, threw it out the window, and destroyed the role of Congress. And Alan Dershowitz made the point. He says, this whole committee is unconstitutional. The referral is unconstitutional. In fact, I go as far as to say it is criminal. It's unconstitutional because if you look at the Constitution, Congress is not delegated the power to investigate. Unless they are investigating to write a new law, there's no reason Congress should have these committees or investigations. These are kangaroo courts, they're political courts, and oh, by the way, the Republicans said they want their new church committee. It's going to be just as illegal, just as unconstitutional, just as much a kangaroo court, just from the other side. That's why I say a pox on both their houses. But the idea that I call it a kangaroo court. It was a drumhead trial, right? Trump was guilty, and it was literally set up so that how do we make sure that we get the answer, right? So you have they said, it was supposed to be bipartisan, but when the Republicans nominated people to the committee, Nancy Pelosi refused to let them be seated. She picked the two Republicans that were on the committee. Yeah. The committee that has no investigative, the committee has no legitimate subpoena power, but they used it to bludgeon people and to gather intelligence on their opposition. They denied due process. They denied the defense a chance to present their case. They played theater, doing this on primetime TV. This was a political hatchet job. This makes a banana republic look good.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you expect this. This was a show trial from beginning to end. And the idea that they charged the Department of Injustice, here are charges you want for us, just shows not only how corrupt the system is, but by denying people their rights, they committed actual crimes. They commit the actual members of that committee committed federal crimes under both Title 18 U.S.C. 241 and 242. Not only did they deny people their rights, but they conspired to do so. And if we had a justice system instead of this Department of Injustice, there would be federal prosecutors and grand juries that would be looking to indict members of that committee from both parties.
Well, Paul, at what point do we as average citizens need to stand up and be prepared for any sort of nonsense like this coming down just to ordinary people? Because if they'll do it to themselves up there, I mean, that's just total corruption. The entire place is imploding with corruption. You got all the stuff coming out from Twitter. We find out that the Pentagon was actually colluding with social media to put out propaganda. You see all this falling down. You see this taking place. And then some of the nonsense that went on today. I think we're funding the Ukraine now with $40 billion more to funnel back to our politicians over here. That's just nothing but a way to launder money back. The the entire federal government is basically imploding and is corrupt. It makes our local sheriffs look a little bit more important today. What do you think?
But it does. But remember this. I looked it up. So you've got the entire January 6th fiasco. You've got the people in both the House and the Senate that they can't pass a budget. Well, they just dropped a budget, a 4,100-page budget with 24 hours to read it, less than 24 hours to read it. And they said, because they had almost 10 months to put this together. They couldn't. Sorry, not a budget, a spending bill. An omnibus, pork laden. I mean, these are the hogs feeding at the trough. And we've known it, and we've known it for decades. And here we are, just a few months after an election. We had a chance. We had a good chance for the people to say, enough is enough. We want governance, not this malfeasance. 96% of incumbent congressmen won their elections. The American people said, we want the pigs in the trough. We want our rights taken. We want our rights trampled. And until the American people wake up, I don't know how much more it's going to take, but until they wake up and realize they are responsible for the people that are doing this to us.
Well,
until they wake up, we're heading down the road to serfdom.
Okay, so here's my question. As an average citizen and as a group of U.S. citizens, when do we all stand up and say, we're not going to fund your criminal activity and your corruption anymore? We're not going to fund it. We're just going to stop. We're going to keep it in our states and let our states manage the money. We've got a better grip on that.
We had the chance last month and we just didn't. See, we keep waiting. I see it all the time. When is this person or this thing or what gonna fix this? The problem doesn't originate in Washington. It doesn't originate in Nashville. They are symptoms. They are symptoms of American complacency, of American narcissism, of our laziness and unwillingness to participate, to be involved. Congress has generally between a 10 and 50% approval rate, but they have an 80 and 90% reelection rate. What does that say about us? Oh, my guy is good. Your person is evil. No, they're both most likely evil, but the problem is we won't hold them accountable until, anything else we do is trying to throw lipstick on a pig. And I know that's not what people want to hear, but until the American people realize they don't have to stand for this crap, then we're going to keep getting fed the slop until, it's time for us to be butchered.
Yeah. It's always the other guy that's causing the problem, not our guy.
Absolutely. Hey, trust me. I have Marsha Blackburn. No, sorry. I don't care that she's a Republican or, I don't care. She has done some very evil stuff in our name. And I don't see people holding her accountable.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, it's not our guy. It's the other guys. It's the other states over here.
Yeah. Should I say it's our state?
Everybody's wanting to pat their guy on the back and blame everybody else, and they keep sending them back. Well, we got to take a stand. I think we just need to clean house, but that'll never happen. You've got too much money being spent to convince all of us sheeples out here to keep voting like we've been voting. So I don't know what to answer.
The thing to remember about a bribe, it involves two parties.
Right.
One offering the bribe and the one accepting the bribe.
Yeah.
Right.
And like
we the sheeple, we the sheeple are the ones taking the bribes.
Right.
And no question. If we can be bought, let's face it, the American people are a cheap date.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Paul, let's wrap this up. It's been interesting. We could go on and on about our problems, but this CBDC is definitely a concern that a lot of people are talking about now. I just wish that more people would take note of this and start making preparations. Maybe somebody here in this video will make a step in the right direction and maybe change the way they're thinking about it. But Paul, again, thanks for being on. Wish you and your family a Merry Christmas, and we'll get back real soon, right after Christmas, and we'll have some other things to discuss and talk about CBDC a little bit further. But thanks for watching the Southern Patriot Network. Be on the lookout for more coming down the road here. And be sure to visit Paul's website at constitutionstudy.com. Paul, once again, thanks. And we'll be back real soon.